Good afternoon, everyone. I am here with Dr. Edward Pallas, who is currently a district commander with the Montgomery County Department of Police, MCP, in Maryland, where he has served for 28 years. His prior assignments include MCP Director of the Training and Education Division and the Major Crimes Division. Commander Pallas is also the leader of his department's crisis negotiation team, where he has served as a conflict hostage negotiator for the last 21 years. Don't mess with this guy. Ed earned a Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership and Innovation from Wilmington University and a master's degree in Applied Behavioral Science from Johns Hopkins University. His dissertation, The Relationship Between Emotional Intelligence, Transformational Leadership Style, and Effectiveness Among Police Supervisors, is published with ProQuest. Dr. Pallas is skilled in the Socratic method. He has taught thousands of law enforcement and private sector professionals from the United States, Canada, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Armenia. He strives to keep his students engaged and eager to learn. Ed is currently a faculty member with the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association, FBI LEEDA. Prior to joining the LEDA cadre, Ed spent 12 years as a master instructor for the International Association of Chiefs of Police, IACP, Leadership in Organizations, LPO program. Additionally, he teaches leadership, communication, and psychology courses at the undergraduate and graduate doctorate levels. In addition to teaching, coaching is a passion for Dr. Pallas. Ed discovers his crisis hostage negotiation skills had much in common with the best executive coaches. After many hours of study and mentoring, Ed earned his associate certified coach credential, ACC, from the International Coach Federation, ICF. Being married with 3 children keeps him busy, but he likes to write. Ed Pallas is the author of the book Leader Armor, Leadership for the Law Enforcement First Line Supervisor. Reviewers called Leader Armor is a must read for supervisors and managers and an essential read for any person in any professional field who is new to the leadership role. He also writes the occasional article in Police Chief Magazine and PoliceOne.com. Previous articles include Gettysburg Battlefield, Teaching Contemporary Leadership, Research in Brief, Leadership in Law Enforcement, and Resilience, Your New Superpower. While not engaged in leadership learning, training, or coaching, Ed strives to be an average CrossFitter and to keep up with his wife and oldest daughter, both of whom are fierce CrossFit competitors. So Dr. Ed will be speaking to us today about a hostage negotiator's stress secrets, and I can't wait to hear all about it. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Randy. Thanks. I'm stressed out because of that long bio. Sorry about that.
That's quite the bio. And quite the person to have on here. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. So police commander, doctor of education, author, and hostage negotiator. I know we're here to talk about stress, so let's start with the police commander role. What is a stressful situation that you've been in as a police commander?
So the thing that comes to mind is I was actually 4th of July 2 years ago, sitting in my office, middle of the day. It was actually fairly early morning. I think it was about 11 a.m. in the morning. And on the police radio, I hear the sound of shots fired, which, believe it or not, is not that uncommon, especially on the 4th of July. You think fireworks, firecrackers. So I didn't think too much of it. Then we got a second call that a young man was in a neighborhood with an assault rifle and firing off shots. And that got my attention. Some of our patrol officers were already headed that way. And one of our patrol officers had a ride along, a civilian ride along with her. And she told the her passenger. She said, "Hey, I can't go right into this because you're here. So we are going to sit on the outskirts, on the outer perimeter where she thought it was safe." So by this point, I'm in my car. I'm heading that way, lights and siren, because we got several more calls. And when you get that many calls, it's legitimate. And so, as luck would have it, the officer who was sitting on the outer perimeter sees the young man as he got into a car and he left the area with the assault rifle. They come up next to each other, kind of across from each other at an intersection. He leans the rifle out and fires several rounds at her in her cruiser. Again, luck is on our side. It actually just hits the cruiser, flattens one of her tires, and he ends up driving right past her. At this point, myself and a couple other officers had just come around the corner and a chase was on. And it's not like the movies. Honestly, most cops don't like being in a high speed chase because it's usually very dangerous. Somebody gets hurt, the bad guy, an officer, civilians get in the mix, and it's very stressful. It's even more stressful when you're the person in charge of the whole thing, because for good or bad, you're responsible for all of it. And by this point, we had started heading south on Interstate I-270, which is kind of a major artery in where I am in Maryland. And we crossed the bridge into Virginia. And this is one of the few times in law enforcement that we in the state of Maryland can pursue somebody into the state of Virginia, because technically in the state of Virginia, I don't have any police powers. Our officers don't have any police powers. It's a whole different game. And I was also convinced that it was going to end in a shooting. This young man had fired multiple rounds in his neighborhood, hit a couple of trucks, hit a couple of townhouses. We found out later, one of the townhouses, he just missed a couple of young kids who were sleeping, and just by the angle, it missed them in their bed. And so we call in the Virginia State Police. They come in to help us, and they actually take over the chase. And in the end, they do what's called a pit maneuver. You've probably seen it on TV with the chases where they kind of hit the rear bumper and spin the car around in an effort to stop the chase. Well, as I'm back watching the troopers do their pit maneuver, the bad guy's car doesn't just turn, it flips over about 3 different times, and he is actually partially ejected from it. Luckily for everybody, he was not hurt. None of the officers were hurt. We got him safely into custody. We recovered 2 different rifles. One was a BB gun, but the other was a legitimate rifle, and he gets placed into custody. But if you were to review my body worn camera, you would hear me doing some of the techniques that we're going to talk about today. The number one being controlling my breathing, because it was pretty stressful, because I was absolutely convinced it was going to end in a firefight with this young man, and that's something that nobody ever wants. So that's the one that comes to mind when you ask that question.
Sorry. Okay. Wow. You know, unless somebody's in that situation, they cannot understand the stress that you're under, and the responsibility that you have, people's lives at your fingertips, and being shot at and whatnot. Just can't imagine the stress that you guys are under in those circumstances. So thank you for your service.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Um, so how about hostage negotiators? What
Yeah.
is a common myth about them?
I'll give you two. First is what I call the lone hero myth. If you watch the movie The Negotiator with Samuel Jackson and Kevin Spacey, and some of the others, you get the impression that it's a lone hero, that the negotiator is the hero. They're by themselves. They've got these special powers, and they can listen and communicate and convince somebody to do something that they don't want to do. And that's just untrue. Really, any negotiator is backed by his or her team. It's a whole team of people behind the scenes that are helping them listen. They're helping them gather intelligence. They might be talking to family members or witnesses, but all those things are going on behind the scenes. So it's never one person. It's always a team effort. Even if you just see one person, just understand there's a lot more than that. And probably the second is what I would call the naturally born myth. And I get this a lot, or I hear this a lot when it comes to leadership as well. People tend to think you're either born a leader or you're not. So you're either born, hostage negotiator or you're not. And that's just not true. Hostage negotiation, just like leadership, is a set of skills that can be learned and developed. Now, there are people that are born slightly wired in a way that are slightly better leaders or better hostage negotiators, but even they can become better with proper coaching, mentoring, and training. So those would be the two that I would give you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So both roles are super stressful. What can you tell us about stress?
So the number one thing about stress to know is that stress, it can make a mess. Stress can really make a mess, but only if you don't understand it. If you don't know how it works, stress can make a mess with your personal relationships, your job, your health. It can really wreak havoc. But if you understand it a little bit, you can actually use it as a tool. In the grand scheme of things, stress is actually a baby science without giving you, I've already bored you to death with the bio, so I won't bore you to death with the history lesson on stress, but it's a baby science. It really goes back to the 1930s. I think it was 1936. A guy named Hans Selye is credited with messing with some rats, and he discovered it by accident. There's this other guy, Walter Cannon, that had some input into it. But regardless, that's only, I should have done this by, I don't know, 88, 90 years, something like that we've been really learning about stress. So it's a baby science, and I think there's a lot more to know. But here's what I think everybody should know. Your body, and these are terms that you might have heard depending on your age. When I was in high school, it was called homeostasis. Some of the younger people on might have heard something called allostasis. Essentially, for our purposes, it's the same thing. And that's when your body tries to maintain kind of a normal setting, but it's dependent on the situation. So if I'm just relaxed on my chair watching TV or reading a book, my normal settings of blood pressure, heart rate, respiration will be one thing. If I'm running a marathon, the normal are going to be different. They're going to be higher. So it's really situationally dependent. And your body tries to maintain that. Now, a stressor is anything that comes into your life that knocks you out of that balance. And for the longest time as humans, it was just an acute stress. In other words, it was an immediate danger, and our body reacts to that danger. You've heard of this fight or flight thing by releasing a bunch of hormones to restore this balance, mainly adrenaline and cortisol. And these chemicals and some others, or their hormones, actually prepare you to either throw a punch or run like heck. But either way, you're going to go into fight or flight mode. And the way our systems were designed, and they were designed perfectly, was to get us out of those situations so that we can survive. Now, here's the problem. Modern human in 2024, we don't just activate that for physical threats because for most of us, physical threats just don't happen that often in our life. The problem is we invoke that same stress response if we're sitting in traffic or we've just had an email from our boss and we're like, I can't believe they put that in an email, or we're trying to pay a mortgage payment or school loans, or for some people, speaking in public. A lot of people would rather be the funeral than speak at the funeral. So it depends on what it is. But now, as modern humans, we start invoking that stress response so much that the stress response itself becomes more dangerous to us and causes more havoc and creates more of a mess than the stressor itself. So we need to work on what's called resilience. I've probably heard of that. It's basically your ability to bounce back from stress. And here's the thing, resilience is learnable. Any situation you have that's stressful, you can look at it as a learning opportunity to develop your resilience. And there's three tools that I use, or I actually use more than that, but for the listeners, I give you three quick kind of down and dirty tools because I want them to have something that's useful that they can apply right away. So these are ones I've developed. I haven't developed them. I've learned them, and I've developed them myself. But as a negotiator and as a police commander, it helps me in a lot of stressful situations. I call them the 3 R's, the remarkable resilience. So here's the first one. Recognize, recognize stress. Recognize when your body is reacting to stress. And we all have different, it's almost like a poker tell. Some of us get red in the face, or maybe your hands start to shake a little bit, or maybe you start hyperventilating, or you notice you become snippy with your spouse or your kids. Your breathing, respiration usually changes. And that's that body releasing those chemicals to whatever it is you're reacting to prepare you to go into fight or flight. But the problem is you might be sitting in traffic and there's no real danger other than maybe getting yelled at by your boss because you're going to be late for a meeting. So that's the first thing. Start paying attention to yourself as to how you react under stress. And if you don't know, ask your spouse or your wife or your husband or your kids, and they will tell you, oh, let me tell you, Dad, let me tell you, this is how you react when you get stressed. So now you know what to look for. So that's the first one, is recognize. Now that you recognize it, the second R is reframe the situation. Epictetus wrote, man is not troubled by events, but rather how he interprets them. In other words, sitting in traffic, that's neutral. Your mortgage payment, you're not going to die from missing a mortgage payment. There might be some long-term repercussions, but there's not an immediate acute response there. Stress is neither good nor bad. It just exists. So you got to master your mindset and make the decision right there that, hey, I recognize this is a stressful situation. And guess what? I can use it to become resilient. About 6 years ago, on my 47th birthday, I was diagnosed with stage 3 throat cancer. And I had already been researching all this stuff, but I completely forgot about all this. And for about 3 days, it was a big pity party. Thought I was going to die. We were looking at wills, all that other stuff. Spoiler alert, here I am 6.5 years later and going well so far. But it was after the third day that I decided, hey, dummy, this is an opportunity, and this is a mental mindset game. And so I looked at it that way as a challenge to overcome, and that, along with a lot of modern medicine and some great surgeons and radiation oncologists, worked out for the better. So the opportunity is always there, but it's how you frame it, because you can frame an event as, oh man, this is going to be horrible, or you know what, I can do this. If nothing else, I'm going to come out a little bit smarter than I was before, a little bit better than I was before. So that's the second R, is to reframe it. And then the last R is to reach for your tools. I give you 3 quick tools. The first one is when you start to derail, inhale, work on your breathing. There's something called tactical breathing. A lot of military units use it, the Navy SEALs unit, the Green Berets, a lot of police units use it. And it's also called box breathing. But the cooler term is tactical breathing. So, that's the one I'll throw out. But the idea is you just start to inhale for 4 to 5 seconds. The ideal is a 5.5. So you inhale for 5.5, hold it for 5.5, exhale for 5.5, and inhale for 5.5. So it kind of forms this box. But the main thing is just to start paying attention to your breathing. Slow your breathing down. Don't worry about the box or the number of seconds or anything like that. Just start to slow down. Breathe through your nose if you can, and then just slow exhale. So that's how it works with tactical breathing. If you want a boost to tactical breathing while you're doing that, if you have time, look around and look for things that you can be grateful for. So now we're going to give tactical breathing a turbo boost with gratitude. So if I look around right now, I'm grateful for even something as silly as a water bottle. I'm very grateful that I have this water here. It's something that will hydrate me. It will keep me healthy. It will keep my throat moist, and I'm grateful for this. If I think about in the other room, I can be grateful for my wife and my youngest daughter who are sitting in the other room. I'm grateful to look outside. For where I am, there's about 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground. I'm very grateful that I'm in here in a nice warm office talking to you. So here's the cool thing about that. And I know it sounds silly, but it really works. When you're grateful for something, You can't be anxious or stressed or worried about something. You can't hold those two emotions in your mind at the same time. So if you focus on your breathing and the situation allows you to look around and be grateful, you're already starting to reduce that stress and anxiety and get yourself ready for resilience to be able to bounce back. And then just to piggyback on that, if you have time, don't just work on breathing in the moment. Make it part of your daily practice. Just do a few minutes of mindfulness. I use an app called Headspace. There's a bunch of them out there. And I do Headspace for 10 to 15 minutes every morning. It's just a quick breathing exercise. And over the long term, there's lots of benefits on meditation that I don't have time or won't go into right now. So that's the first tool. Okay, so remember that when you start to derail, inhale. Second tool is journaling. Write it to fight it. If we do a quick exercise with everybody that's listening and even yourself, take out a piece of paper, something to write on. Seriously, this will take 50 seconds. Write down 5 things you are grateful for. 5 things you're grateful for. Now, while you're doing that, I'll start talking about why you're doing it. Once you've completed that, congratulations, you've done your first gratitude journaling exercise. Literally takes 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes, but it shouldn't really take more than a minute or two. Could be your family members, your pet. If you have a roof over your head, the fact that we live in a country and a time where we can talk to each other over the internet like this. I mean, it could be anything. Just do this just once a week for 10 weeks will lead to a 25% increase in your overall happiness and well-being. Now, that's according to research by a guy named Dr. Robert Emmons. There's a bunch of other research out there too, but that's just a quick and easy one. He also tells us that grateful people sleep 30 minutes more and exercise 33% more. So now, again, turbocharge it, boost it. That's part of my morning routine every morning because it takes 60, 90 seconds. And I think everybody in here has probably come home with some negativity from their day or their work. I know I have, being a police officer. We tend to, not every day, but often we see some pretty horrible stuff. And the last thing I want to do is bring that home to my family through something called emotional contagion. Just think about it like your emotions being contagious. So I figure even if there's a small chance that I can be 25% happier or 25% less a jerk, let's use a nice language like that, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it because I got nothing to lose. I mean, it's 60 seconds of my time. So that if that helps me offload some of that before I come home, that's great. And so that's part of my morning routine, although a lot of people do journaling at night and it helps them offload. There's no right or wrong time to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The idea is just to do it. All right, so tool number 3, the last one, and I know this sounds basic, it's just move. Get your body moving. We've gotten so sedentary in our culture with COVID. You could sit at home for months and never have to leave. You can order everything. You could have food delivered, everything delivered to your house, and you could literally sit in a chair all day. I'll save the nutrition talk for later for another time. That's part of it. But our bodies were not designed to sit for hours and hours at a time. There's a great book out there by Kelly McConigal called The Joy of Movement. And Dr. McConigal says there's even a magic step count number that if you want to increase your satisfaction with life and feel less anxious and depressed, you have to hit a certain number of steps each day. Want to know what that number is? 5,649. I'm not making it up. 5,649. If you want to be stressed and anxious, then take less than 5,649 steps each day. I round it up to 6. I actually shoot for 7 to 10. But if you just have 6,000 as a number, that's a good one. And it's not hard. Just get up, set a timer. Set a timer for every hour. Get up and walk around your house. Do that every hour for just a minute or two, and you'll hit the step goal. If you're in a situation where you literally can't walk, move your arms around, do circles, do something, move your body around, just get some movement going. but do it on a regular basis so you can hit your step count. And I think you'll see a drastic ability to slay stress and reclaim your resilience. So those are a few tools that hopefully the people that are watching, I picked tools that you can use like right now. You could use them as soon as we finish with this call. And don't try to do all of them, although that'd be great, but just pick one. Pick one and give it a shot.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for sharing some of your stress tools or your de-stressing tools.
Yes.
So how do you help organizations with leadership, stress, and communication?
So I do training kind of like this. Really wasn't training, more of an interview, but so I do keynote speeches and breakout sessions. I do group training, and then if you're really interested in working one-on-one, I do executive coaching.
Okay, that's awesome. Because you definitely have all the accolades for someone to be impressed to work with you. So your book is called Leader Armor. What is it all about? Tell us about it.
So real quickly, because I know you don't want to be bored with this, but the idea is it's how to become, in a nutshell, it's how to become a leader others respect and want to follow. Here's the quick down and dirty. Most of us, maybe we get to be really good at a job that we do. And then because we're really good at that job, we get promoted to be put in charge of other people that are doing that job and might be really good at that job. Here's the problem. The skills you needed to be good at that job and the skills to manage other people doing that job can be drastically different. And we promote people without giving them the tools to be successful leaders or the knowledge or the training. And we just expect that because they were good at a job, they'll be good at managing or supervising people. And the problem is it is a drastically different skill set. And so that's what I cover in the book. It says for law enforcement. If you check the reviews on Amazon, there's quite a few private sector people that think it has been very worthwhile. But I try to weave in some good stories with some actual leadership lessons and sprinkle a little behavioral science in there too, but not enough to bore you, promise.
Okay, thank you. So how can someone connect with you if they want to speak further about training, coaching, or speaking?
Easiest thing is go to my website. It's www.edwardpallas.com. Pallas is like Dallas, but with a P. No, not a Cowboys fan. Sorry. So edwardpallas.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email at ed@edpallas.com. Any one of those will work to give me a shout. And if I don't respond right away, then shoot me another email because maybe it got hit with the spam filter or something. But I'll reach out to you and we can connect and figure out if we're right for each other. Because I'll be honest, a lot of people I talk to, we can resolve it in a quick phone call, and it's not worth a longer term relationship or training or anything like that. And some people, it's not the right fit, and I'll refer you somewhere else. But often it is, and we'll see.
Sounds fantastic. I really appreciate you being on here, sharing with us, sharing some of your knowledge, and wanting to help people and being open to having people reach out to you as well. So I hope they do. And I really want to thank you. I'm grateful to have you. Thank you for your service, for everything that you've shared, and for giving us your time.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it.